Hello, and welcome back to another Wild Knights podcast episode.
Hosted by a Knights fan.
And a Wild fan.
And covering all the weird, wacky, and wonderful things happening in the hockey world. And amazingly, there's real hockey news to talk about today.
Thank
and not just one story. There's like 4 stories going on right now. One of them's been a story for a while. One of them is a checkup on something I swear to God, we predicted it in the last podcast, like
we
down
did.
to the person and the team.
Yep.
One of them has been going on the NHL YouTube channel for the last month, and it's been the only reason I've stayed sane because the hockey season hasn't started yet.
You really don't do well when there's nothing to talk about.
No, I'm jonesing for a good hockey story. But
I know you are.
Thank God today has provided a lot of them. This last weekend has been an amazing time to be around the hockey universe because there's been so much stuff happening, even up until this morning. And so that's why we wanted to sit down and get this recorded. Mind you, we're recording this an hour and a half later than we were supposed to be because for some reason my computer and our recording devices decided to not work.
We love when technology fights.
So 6 computer restarts, 5 software re-downloads later, and a minor amount of screaming. We're there. We're home.
I don't think you mean screaming. I think you mean swearing.
We're going to go with that one, yes.
Okay.
Those two are not mutually exclusive.
And we took this weekend off because I was in Maine for a wedding.
You were out of town.
Yes. So it gave the hockey world a chance to catch up.
Of course, the one time we decided to take one upload cycle off, stuff actually starts happening.
Which is great because now we have stuff to talk about.
Yep. And the first thing we can talk about is the thing that I did while I was dreading getting ready to start going back to class this week, which was rewatching the NHL's top 15 regular season games of last season. They're down to number 4, and they've been uploading one every couple of days. And I had to laugh because number 5 and number 4 so far have been occupied by none other than the Minnesota Wild.
Heck yeah.
The most interesting team to not make the playoffs last year.
Hey, that's accurate, but it stings.
Yeah, it is a little bit on the accurate side. But one of the things that was really interesting is we actually both attended one of those games.
We did.
It wasn't just a random game. Well, that's at least what I thought it was walking up to the game that day. But it wound up being one of the highest scoring games of the modern era.
Well, let's do this. So number 5 on the miniseries of the 15 most exciting games of the year last year. At number 5, it was the 17-goal game between the Wild and Vancouver.
Oh, yes. The triple. 3 players with hat tricks.
We love that.
Yeah, but we'll circle back to that one. Number 4 on the list was the day John Hines decided to say that he had bigger balls than the rest of the NHL and pulled Marc-Andre Fleury in overtime against the Nashville Predators because the Wild needed that extra point, or at least they thought they did at the time, and wound up winning the game. Seeing a goalie celebrate an OT win from the bench is still one of the strangest things ever. And so seeing it actually happen, I mean, this was the one that it worked.
Yeah.
They did it twice last year. I was there for the other one.
Well, Hines couldn't have expected it to work.
No.
And even your coach was like, we were expecting this to happen.
Yeah, no. That's one of my favorite sound bites of last year.
We should have kept whoever, I don't remember who's in goal that day.
It was Gus.
Because we were also at that game.
Yes, we were.
And don't let the broadcast fool you. There was no one celebrating that stadium.
No.
Even though Knights fans were just like dumbfounded.
I wasn't just stunned.
Like everyone was just like, what just happened?
I don't know a little bit, but like it was just weird.
Well, it was
it was a game. I'll leave it at that. It was one of the games of all time. But the whole reason I bring this up was because I want to take the opportunity to go back and talk about the number 5 most exciting game of the year, the 17-goal game between the Wild and the Canucks. Mm-hmm. And we can pick up the story about 3 hours before puck drop. Me and you are walking down the streets of downtown St. Paul on our way to eat at the world's greatest Italian restaurant down by the stadium, Cosetta's.
A lot of people would disagree with you on that, but
I think it's one of the best in the Twin Cities.
It's one of the best around, yes, and it's been one of a long-standing
restaurants. It's a
St.
haunt.
Paul.
If you've ever tried to go there before a Wild game,
it's
don't
packed.
Don't.
Get there like 2 hours before the gates open.
It's a little much, but you probably don't remember because this was back in March, like 5 months ago.
It was February, actually.
It was February?
It was February.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was February. It was like February. Yeah, it was like, yeah. The UN.
I'm pretty sure it was President's Day.
Oh, yeah, because we didn't have class.
Yeah.
That's why we were able to go. But I'm sure you don't exactly remember, but what were we talking about on the way into the stadium? We were talking about how I wasn't sure the Vancouver Canucks were real because
you were filling me in on your
at
theory.
At that time, they were in first place in the Pacific, a position they did not relinquish for the rest of the year. And my precious Knights were, falling off the face of the earth at the time.
They did that a lot last season, let's be real.
We're not going to talk about that. And we're walking in. I'm like, I'm not sure the Canucks are real. Like, they've got top heavy. They had just traded for Nikita Zadorov. They had just like the tallest guy since Zdeno Chara joined the lineup. And I'm like, okay, they're an okay team, but I'm not entirely sure that they're real. So, like, what are we going to see here? And we're walking up and down the street waiting for the stadium to open because, it's Minnesota in February. It's still cold.
And it was a daytime game. So I think puck dropped at like 1. So this was like 11 maybe.
Yeah, this was like around lunchtime.
Yeah.
Like early lunch hour. And so we get there and the game gets off to a predictable start. Unfortunately, the Wild go down early. And then the penalties happen in the second and third period. And, you look up.
Well, and they pulled Gus and put in Fleury for the third period, who didn't really see any action down there.
He still gave up 2 goals despite the fact that the game was, I think it was 5-3 when the third period started or something.
We got 7 goals that period, right?
Yeah,
so it was like 3-5, I want to say.
It was 5-3, 7.
Or like, it was 5-3 or 6-3.
It was a lot to not many. Mm-hmm. And then penalty trouble. And
weren't there multiple like 5-on-3s?
Yeah, there were back-to-back 5-on-3s to end Ridiculous. The second and start the third. Because the Wild, it was 5-2 with like a minute to go in the second. The Wild got a 5-on-3 and scored. Then they thought they scored on the power play that would have made it 5-4. Then the goal got called back for reasons escaping comprehension.
And you're like, oh, they're never going to call it back. And I'm like, no, they always
proceeded to call it back.
Here's the thing. Wild fans can never get a break with goals that are challenged. Somehow it always ends up getting overturned for us. I don't know how.
Yeah, I've never seen a team get more goals called back than the Wild did last year.
Like, you think that I'm like I feel sitting here like, oh, this is not gonna, and you're like, no, it has to. No, it doesn't.
I feel like somebody should track that data to see which team gets the most goals called back in a single year. I'm sure that data exists. I just haven't looked for it yet.
I mean, you could, start tallying.
Yes,
wow, I cannot say that word.
That would require me to watch every single game, every single night for 6 straight months.
No, it's not every single game, you don't have to watch every single game. You just have to look and do your research.
Okay, that's fair.
You'd have to do it daily though, so that would be a lot. But
but seeing that many, like seeing JT Miller for the Canucks get a hat trick like in the second period, and then Joel Eriksson and Kirill Kaprizov getting hat tricks in the third. I've been to a lot of exciting hockey games in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I've been to what is arguably the single greatest regular season game in Golden Knights history. And yet this game was one of the strangest hockey games I've ever been to in my entire life.
And I'm pretty sure your parents also said that they were jealous.
Oh, well,
my parents said that
anyone would be jealous to go to a game in which 17 goals were scored.
We had really good seats too.
We were watching. We saw a goal approximately every 4 minutes.
I know
throughout that game.
I know.
In the third period, it was like
every minute
they scored 6 goals in 5 minutes.
I know. I think what was it, like 3 goals in 1 minute or something like that. It was insane.
That was the stuff you see in Pee Wee hockey when a team just forgets to defense, or you're like watching a tournament between a team that very much shouldn't be in that bracket.
And this is why I like John Hines, because granted, we came up from behind that game.
Yes.
And I can see you rolling your eyes over there.
Yes.
But this is why I like him, because I don't know what it was, and the players were able to bring it together. He was able to bring it together. Yeah, but just because you put in Fleury doesn't mean the magic happens.
I mean, I beg to differ.
Need I remind you the LA Kings game?
No, you don't need to remind me.
Exactly.
No, you don't need to remind me.
Yeah, no, I do not.
But hey, the Minnesota Wild occupying 2 of the top 5 games of the year.
That's kind of impressive.
Is pretty cool. And in case you're wondering if you're scoring at home or even if you're alone, do the Golden Knights have any games in the top 15? The answer is yes, but
with an asterisk.
With an asterisk because it's not a game they won. It was the number 14 game of the year. It was when Nashville was on there. We didn't get to see U2, so we're going to just win every goddamn game run that they went on. Middle of the year.
Nashville seems to do that in most years. They go on a run in the middle of the season, but somehow can't put it together in the playoffs.
This year is because they didn't get to see U2 at the Sphere when they were in Vegas after opening a certifiable can of whoop ass on the Knights down on the Strip, which was frustrating to watch. But no, it was a game that the Knights blew a 4-1 lead in the third period, 3 days after blowing a 4-1 lead in the third period to the Coyotes.
I don't understand how someone lost to Coyotes.
I don't want to talk about it. Hey, the goalie who was in net for both games is now in Washington. So deal with that. Actually, scratch that. It was just the one LT was in net for the game in Arizona. The reason that makes me really mad that they put this game at 14 is because this game should have never been a game. Do you want to know why it should have never been a game? We were up 4-1. We were definitely up 4-1. We were cruising. Here's the kicker. Half of the starting roster was hurt, and we had our 4th string goalie in. So the NHL is going to look me square in the eyes and tell me that this is a top 15 game of the year because the Preds did what they were supposed to do and lit up a perennial AHL backup? By the way, Yuri Patera doesn't even play for us anymore. I think he's in Vancouver now.
I'm just letting you go at this point.
I've had enough of this. That game and the blown lead against... He says,
and he continues to talk.
That lead... And that blown lead and the blown lead against Arizona is why we had to play Dallas in the first round. If we had won those games, we would have played Vancouver and we probably would have won.
No, you wouldn't have. You guys couldn't put it together. You guys could not put it together.
Which is why I was even more pissed when I saw the Bleacher Report said we were one of the 6 biggest losers. With the quote saying, with the author of the article saying, quote, the roster wasn't anywhere near as good as it was last year. That seems like a bit of revisionist history since we won the goddamn Stanley Cup 15 months ago.
But did you win it 2 months ago? Yeah, you're in defeat over there, aren't you?
I give up. I
know.
I give up. But anyway.
But again, you guys might be in kind of a slight rebuilding.
Retool, I think, is the word. Well, I mean, like we covered on the first episode of this podcast, there's no way in hell we were going to pay the players what they got paid this offseason, and the ones that we let go deserved it.
And it's also talking about, going where the money is and bringing in some fresh new blood.
It's time to get younger.
Yeah,
it's time for the team to get younger.
You guys have a lot of veterans and a lot of good players and respected players.
I was saying that since middle of last season.
No, I know. We've had this
younger.
conversation.
Yeah.
Because you kept toting how great your Knights were, and I'm like, well, what happens when you guys don't have any younger players? And you're like,
it does scare me to know that we were running the farm thin, but it's getting a little better. But
I think you guys have stopped. You guys have stopped
being stupid.
I was going to say making moves with your round picks, but I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think it's more you're making more moves for younger players versus having seasoned.
Yeah. And this is a conversation that we can have a little bit more in depth when we get closer to the season, when training camps open and we start seeing preseason games.
Well, and we start seeing
predicted rosters and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw one floating around on Twitter, but
it's so early still,
I don't take a lot of stock in that because you never know what's going to happen between now and the opening of training camps. Just ask our good friend, the Nashville Predators, who just managed to completely piss off their number 1 prospect.
Yeah.
So we were walking out of class today.
Yes, we were.
Because I'm a good student. I don't look at my phone or Twitter very much during class.
Very much. Don't let him fool you.
I put in inverted commas. But I opened my phone and I saw something I never thought I would see. Nashville Predators have by far and away the best goalie prospect in the NHL and AHL. I'm not sure if he won the award for best goalie in the AHL last year, but his numbers were very good. And so I'm like, and he was one of the players that was like, oh, is he going to get traded, if Nashville's really going to blow it up because, they could get a lot of value for this because good goalies don't grow on trees unless you're in Vegas, apparently. But it hit the wires today, according to Bleacher Report Open Ice. Yaroslav Askerov asked for a trade, and he said if he doesn't get traded out of Nashville, he will not report to the AHL to begin the season in Milwaukee for the Admirals.
I didn't realize that Nashville had the Admirals in Milwaukee.
I honestly, some of these AHL teams make no sense.
I mean, you would think that the proximity to Milwaukee, it would make sense for Chicago, but...
Or like Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that there was an AHL team in Wisconsin.
We can have a separate conversation about stupid AHL team names. I like what the Knights do, and I like what the Wild do. Their AHL team follows the theme of their NHL team.
Well, and we're also in Iowa.
And I know in Vegas, even the ECHL team follows, because you've got the Night Monsters in Tahoe, you've got the Silver Knights in Henderson, and you've got the Golden Knights in Vegas. And then in the Wild's case, you've got the Iowa Wild in Des Moines and the Minnesota Wild here in the Twin Cities.
Yes.
So let's go back to naming our AHL teams not stupid.
I mean, the Admirals, though, have been in Milwaukee for a while, because I was going to say, like, I went to college in Wisconsin, not too far from Milwaukee, and I didn't even know that they had an AHL team there until I was there for maybe a semester.
No, like I've known about the Milwaukee Admirals for a long time, because I grew up in Austin, Texas, and the Dallas Stars have their affiliate in Cedar Park, which is about 45 minutes away from where I grew up. And I watched the Texas Stars play a lot of games against the Milwaukee Admirals. And the whole reason I remember them is because one of the games I was at, the Admirals the goalie helmet got knocked off. And I swear he looks like it looked like the scene from Men in Black where the alien got his head shot off and it started to grow back really tiny by comparison to his shoulders. And that's what it looked like. It was like giant shoulders, little bitty head.
I feel like that's every goalie, though.
Good point.
Because you just once you put on that goalie gear, you
get wide.
You get so wide.
But what makes the story so weird is, he's one of Nashville's blue chip prospects, like one of the best at his position in the entire prospect pool. And who do we want to blame for this situation? Because I know who we can lay the blame on. The blame for this whole situation, I blame the Dallas Stars. I don't know how, I don't know why, but the Dallas Stars, in their very confusing rivalry, have won this, because the reason that Askerov wants a trade is because the backup job was taken by Scott Wedgwood, who signed out of Dallas. And so,
all right.
Yeah. But why Nashville doesn't want anything to do with them makes no sense. His numbers are good. He went 30, 13, and 1 in 44 AHL starts last year, had a 911 save percentage, 2.4 goal against average, and had 2 appearances in the NHL, 1-0 with a 943 and a 1.47 goals against. He's a damn good goalie. He's a really good goalie. And yet they're going to leave him in the AHL for another year, assuming they can hold on to him. Their GM, the Nashville GM, Barry Trotz, seems fairly confident, telling, I think it was The Athletic or something, that the expectation is for him to still report to camp. But his side's calling for a trade. So
it'll be interesting to see, because who is Nashville's goalie this year?
UC Soros.
Okay.
And then Scott Wedgwood is the backup. Scotty Doorstop. That joke just clicked. I've been saying it all day. And that's the first time you laughed at it.
Yes.
I've been saying it since 1. We're recording this at 5.
I know.
But so where do you think he lands? Do you think he gets moved at all?
I don't know. For me, it's almost what NHL team right now needs a backup goalie who has a decent goalie in net.
Vegas.
Who's on their way out.
Vegas, please trade Samsonov. Please.
They're
trade
not
him.
going to, because they just signed Samson.
But to a very low effect contract. You could bury that in the AHL if you wanted to.
Yeah, but
no.
He deserves his time.
Vegas
in the NHL.
Vegas isn't in on this one. We've already had our drama with a strong-willed, right-catching goalie. We just sent him to Washington.
That's my point. You guys seem like you're pretty set.
Yeah, we're done. The Wild are an interesting one, but they've got Jesper Wallstedt in the AHL. So I wouldn't.
I don't think that we're going to see
Yeah.
any goalie stuff anytime soon.
No.
Like we touched on it kind of at the end of last podcast that we have 3 capable goalies right now.
Yeah.
Somewhat, I mean, at some point, even with Fleury potentially probably leaving at the end of this year and retiring.
I could maybe an interesting landing spot, and this is entirely based on a comment that I'm not entirely sure about. If Jonathan Quick is retired, he could go to New York. New York's in need of a backup. New York needs a backup. Edmonton needs a backup. Please, if he winds up in Edmonton, I think I'll just kill myself.
You say that about everyone, so you just need to chill.
No, good point.
You just need to chill. It's
Edmonton could need a backup. Toronto maybe needs a backup.
I could see him going to Toronto.
Pittsburgh needs a backup. Detroit needs a backup.
I think his best bet is to sign.
Panthers really need a backup.
I think his best bet is to sign an NHL contract with a veteran goalie.
In front of him?
Yeah, so he can grow into the position and play as a backup in the NHL and get some experience. And I think that would be a very good move for people or for a team in general that needs better goaltending.
I think Winnipeg also needs a backup. There's a lot of teams that need a backup.
There's a lot of teams that need a backup. There's also a lot of good goalies out there right now. So it's more, I think that he needs to go to a team that is building for the future.
Yeah, so like
I do think that's where
maybe
he
New
needs to end up.
Jersey. Ooh, Buffalo.
I could see that.
Ottawa, because they just got Linus Ullmark.
Mm-hmm.
That could make one hell of a tandem. But Ottawa doesn't really trade for anybody anymore. I say as they just traded for Ullmark. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I still think there's a very real chance they're just calling his bluff, and he's going to show up.
I mean, the thing is that if you're guaranteed a job, even if it's not the job you want, do you still show up to the job?
Especially on a team that's trying to win the cup this year?
Yeah, like, do you show up?
No.
Like, if you wouldn't show up at a...
Oh, no, I'd show up.
That's my point.
If I was given a contract to play hockey, I would show up.
But that's my point, is that I think that I don't think he's happy where he is.
True.
And I think that he's trying to put his foot down and trying to force a trade.
Yeah.
Do I think that he'll show up if he's not traded?
No.
I think he does.
Well, you want to take the odds on that one? I'll throw $5 into the hypothetical golf dollar bet jar.
Sure, because this is why I think that. If you pull this stunt and get labeled as a diva, is your NHL career effectively over?
Ooh, now you're bringing in like the Pierre-Luc Dubois conversation, the Matt Duchene conversation. Ooh.
My point is though is that if you pull this move and because I mean this kind of is
interesting,
almost a diva move.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like it's different if you're unhappy. Like it's so different. But from the outside looking in, it's like you're playing on an AHL team.
Yeah.
Have been pulled up.
Performed well.
Performing well in the AHL.
He didn't perform in the NHL well last year. He played one game and gave up 5 goals. I don't have it on the. I can see you looking confused at the talking points.
Yeah.
That is me pulling that off my head from his hockey DB page.
It says going one zip with.
That was last year. I'm talking about 2 years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago.
But the thing is that you're supposed to grow. Like AHL is where people grow.
True.
So looking 2 years ago is not going to be contingent. Even
True.
looking last year, he could be a worse goalie than he was last year. He could be the stronger goalie.
Yeah.
He could be just as strong. You don't know. And so do you take a gamble?
I mean, if I'm the GM of the Buffalo Sabres, I'm calling Nashville and I'm not stopping calling until the answer. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm Ottawa, or if I'm maybe Florida.
Do you think that those teams have something for the Preds?
No, I don't know. Honestly, maybe even Tampa would be a landing spot. They do need an heir apparent to Vasilevsky, and they don't have one right now.
Yeah,
they've kind of had a revolving door of backup goalies, whether it be like Brian Elliott or Jonas Johansson. Like neither of those exactly tip the needle as a competent, serviceable backup. I mean, I would say Philly, but they've got Ersson and Fedotov now, so they're set. That's just 2 young goalies.
I mean, is there also a world where he starts at camp and
then gets traded?
And then he gets traded sometime before the season starts.
He loses his leverage the day he shows up to camp. So I would love for him to show up because it would make the saga all the more interesting. But my guess is he's going to hold out.
I mean, he could also just, pull the dead fish.
Yeah, that's true. He could.
Just get in the goal and just let people shoot.
Yeah.
Underperform so that they trade him and then reperform.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see how it goes. But it's a very interesting saga because this was very unexpected because he was expected to be the guy who would replace UC Saros whenever Nashville inevitably blew it up, and they didn't. They made the playoffs, and their ownership and management group is, I don't want to say delusional, but they decided to swing stuff around and see what they hit. And they hit Brady Shea, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and a really expensive UC Saros extension. So instead of going in, basically, Askerov was part of their plans for the Bizarro world where they didn't make the playoffs last year like they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so now here we are with a very confusing situation in Nashville. So we are definitely going to keep a close eye on that one.
Well, especially when they have so many key players coming in.
Right.
It's one of those things where you come in, right? And you have all of these I'm just going to call them A-list.
Yeah.
Top tier names that have built a legacy and a dynasty around them.
Yeah, they're good players.
They are.
They brought in 3 Stanley Cups.
So
easy.
Curious to see if Nashville actually does go all the way. But here's the thing, though, is that everything that happens, especially when this pen to paper and on paper, it looks fantastic. It looks beautiful. A lot of those teams actually don't make it all the way.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the most talented teams.
No.
It's the right team. It's the team that comes together for 5 weeks. In
1980 Olympics.
We just watched Miracle 3 days ago. I get it.
It was a week ago, but yeah.
Yeah, good point. But that amazingly that actually holds some water. It's not always the most talented teams on paper that win. I mean, let's think about it. The 2 most talented, most successful regular season teams in NHL history have lost in the first round.
Well, and I'd also like to point out that I've been saying this for a while, and I say this to you too every time we go to a Wild game or every time we watch something.
Yeah.
Any team can beat any team on any day.
That's why you still play the game.
Yeah.
It's also why I'm allowed to be a Vikings fan. Even though they can't get anything right. But that's a whole separate conversation. Because this is not a football podcast. This is a hockey podcast.
Well, detouring to that for a second. The Vikings just can't catch a break when it comes to quarterback.
No,
but we're going to detour right back to hockey.
Yeah, we can go back to that.
Because we could spend hours talking about the Vikings.
Let's talk about not catching a break. Let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
They get all the way to the Stanley Cup, and now they just seem like
they are in a downward spiral of weirdness.
They're hemorrhaging players, it seems like.
So that's what we thought, but that actually may not be the case anime because of a move
I said
made.
It seems like.
Unfortunately, it may not be the case anymore.
Who knew that this was? I thought the option contracts?
The offer sheets.
Offer sheets, thank you.
Anyway.
Can you tell I'm a law student?
Yes.
But offer sheets. Let's start there.
Offer sheets may not matter anymore.
I know. Let's start there.
So before that, to set the stage, we need to give past us in episode 3 a serious round of applause for getting this prediction right. Because when we first reported on the offer sheets for Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, we were like, oh, there's even a rumor that the San Jose Sharks are going to go after Cody Ceci. Well, you would have never guessed my surprise last night when it was announced that the San Jose Sharks have traded for Cody Ceci.
I saw that coming.
Yeah, I definitely did. And I thought they were just going to offer sheet him.
I think what was happening is a lot of people just were like, oh, Edmonton's just people are just fucking with Edmonton. They're just sniffing around.
Put it in the jar. Put it in the jar.
No.
Put it in the swear jar. Anyway.
Hey, this is a PG-13 podcast or rated R or whatever it is.
Whatever. But the terms of the trade actually were fairly interesting. The Sharks get CC and a third rounder. And the Sharks sent back a second-year defenseman named Ty Emberson, whom I have never heard of before. I don't
follow the Sharks super closely.
I should. They're in my division, and they're my team's closest rival. Used
What
to
was
be.
it? Stanley Cup 20.
We don't talk about 2019.
I was going to say
We
2019.
don't talk about 2019 in this household. We don't.
Good thing we don't live together.
Good point. So it's an interesting price that Edmonton paid, paying that third rounder, because it signals that this is a cap dump. Because Cody Ceci makes $3.25 million a year against the cap, and he's done all that to basically be a pylon in Edmonton. I still remember when the Knights beat Edmonton 2 years ago in the second round, they just bullied him half the time because he's not that good of a defenseman. And granted, he's a better defenseman than I ever will be, but that's beside the point. In response to this trade, Edmonton traded for Vasily Podkolzin. That's a hockey name if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
Out of Vancouver in exchange for a 2025 fourth round pick. And unfortunately, despite my best hopes, despite my fact that I love nothing more than to fuck with the Edmonton Oilers,
Yep.
I hate them with a passion. Unfortunately, I think they're going to be able to get out from under the offer sheets, because the issue with the offer sheets is they couldn't match the contracts with their current cap situation, because the LTIR doesn't exist in the offseason. I know this because I've had to read up on the LTIR rules. Thanks, Mark Stone. But you can operate 10% above the cap during the offseason, and that includes the players you're going to stash on LTIR. So it looks like Evander Kane's going to spend most of, if not the entire season, on LTIR dealing with what I believe to be like a sports hernia or something. He's not doing 100%. And so that's why they couldn't match the offer sheets out of St. Louis for Broberg and Holloway. And yet, now that they've cleared $3.5 million, they can match them so long as they send down one player. They have to send down $850,000 worth of cap space, and they can match St. Louis's offer sheet and keep both the players. So that sucks. That really sucks. Because
You just want the Edmonton
I wanted
Oilers
to laugh at them,
suffer.
damn it. I wanted to laugh at them. I wanted to laugh at their failures, like their organizational incompetence. First, they hire Bowman as their new GM, which set the hockey world on fire. You know, because he was the GM of the Blackhawks in 2012 when all that stuff happened.
Oh, right.
Like he was there, or he
Right.
was involved with the Hawks at that time, and then he stepped down when it all came out a few years ago. But that's a story for a separate conversation. And so what does Edmonton do? They do exactly what they always do after picking up Evander Kane with his gambling problems from San Jose and his culture problems of being just a cancer in the locker room. And then they pick up Corey Perry after he probably slept with Connor Bedard's mom or something. Whatever happened in Chicago that caused his contract to get voided.
Whatever happens is in Chicago stays in Chicago, right?
Apparently. Whoa, that's a really meta joke. Whoa. Actually, it doesn't, but that's a whole separate conversation for another episode.
We'll get to that.
We're going to cover the Blackhawks saga at some point. Not yet, but at some point. But Edmonton takes two players that have been cast off from hockey. They're players that should have no business being on the NHL ice because they're just not good people. And yet they take them and try and win a Stanley Cup with them.
But does being a good person really impact your hockey resume?
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't.
And that's why you don't like Edmonton.
Well, the other thing about that's really one of the reasons why I don't like Edmonton.
Yeah.
Also, why would anybody willingly trade for Corey Perry? It's the way to lose the Stanley Cup. He's lost 4 of them in a row.
I don't know, man.
He's been involved in 4 of the last 5 Stanley Cup finals and lost all 4 of them.
That's really sad, actually.
He lost 3 in a row at one point.
Wasn't it? Is it 4 out of 5 or is it 4 in a row now?
It was 4 out of 5. He lost with the Dallas Stars to the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2020. He lost with Montreal to the Tampa Bay Lightning in 21. He lost with the Tampa Bay Lightning to the Colorado Avalanche in 22. I'm pretty sure he was with I don't know who he was with. I think he was with like Montreal or something in 23. Didn't make the playoffs. And then he lost the Cup final with Edmonton in 24. So
he's just been bouncing
note
around
to
a
self,
little bit.
if you want to win the Stanley, if you want to get to a Cup final, get Corey Perry. If you want to win a Stanley Cup, make sure you're playing against Corey Perry. So I do with that information what you will. But then you add the GM who just was allowed back into the NHL like 2 weeks before he was hired, and it couldn't have been anybody else. But we're getting a little off the rails. The fact of the matter is,
you're getting sidetracked.
I get sidetracked all the time,
especially when it comes to this issue.
I don't like the Oilers. Okay, I really don't like the Oilers.
I know, and one of the reasons why you don't like the Oilers
is because they surround themselves with players that are not redeemable. Mm-hmm. And so that's what really frustrates me.
I feel like you like a good underdog hero story.
Why do you think I'm a Knights fan?
They're not underdogs.
They were when I first started.
Well,
I went to a game.
We're not going to get into this because we could talk about this for hours.
We'll get to we'll save that for another episode of why I'm a Knights fan. Why a kid from Texas who's got roots in Minnesota is a fan of a hockey team in Nevada.
We'll get there.
But so yeah, this whole trade with the Sharks, which we totally predicted, unfortunately is going to deny us dealing with quite possibly the single biggest FU to the Oilers that could have possibly happened.
I mean, I think they dumped Cece so that they could keep the other two.
They did. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, they needed the cap space.
Honestly, the biggest loser in this whole situation is the Blues. You know, they would have liked to have new toys when they had to go play, Bedsy on New Year's Eve on the Winter Classic.
I mean, I was going to say something about their coach.
I'll put a pin in it. Go talk about the coach. I can put a pin in the next talking point.
We'll see how they do this season.
I don't know. I mean, the Edmonton's coach is basically like a golden retriever.
Oh, I was talking about the Blues coach.
Oh, you were talking about the Blues coach? Never mind.
You know who the Blues coach is?
Yeah, the former Wild coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The whole reason I bring up the Blues and the Blackhawks and the Winter Classic is because there's pictures floating around on the internet right now of the Chicago Blackhawks Winter Classic jersey. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God, it looks good. If it's
never
real,
showed me it.
I'll show it to you when we're done recording.
Okay.
It's imagine like a classic Blackhawks jersey. Like I'm talking like, let's see, when you probably didn't pay attention. It looks close to like their jersey from like 2009, like one of their alternate jerseys from back in the Reebok era. Like it's good. It looks like a Winter Classic jersey.
Are you talking about this one?
No, I'm not talking about that one. It's red. To not completely derail the list. Oh, I think you found it.
I did.
Yeah, it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It's better than your Winter Classic jersey.
We were going to get to that. We're going to get to my rant about last year's Winter Classic.
Uh-huh.
But first, we need to talk about what the hell are we doing holding the Winter Classic, which is supposed to be a New Year's Day event, on December 31st. We're holding the 2025 Winter Classic in 2024. Why? What gives? And to answer my own question, the answer is college football. Because college football makes the world go round, doesn't it?
Not for me, but for a lot of people, yes.
For sports, for the television.
You have so many bowls.
Yeah, and it's this year, the college football playoff being expanded to 8 teams. You've got a lot of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day bowl games because that's when all the big games are. That's why last year's Winter Classic between the Knights and the Kraken, I believe it was on January 2nd.
I don't remember. I just remember I was moved into my new apartment.
Either last year or the year before's Winter Classic fell on January 2nd because of the college football playoff. So where do you think that jersey list ranks in the all-time list of Winter Classics jerseys? If this does wind up being the real Winter Classic jersey. Because obviously you've got the classic Robin's Egg Blue Penguins jerseys that were really good for the first Winter Classic. You've got the Seattle jersey from last year, which was pretty good.
Yeah, you guys kind of lost the Winter Classic jersey.
Yeah, I'm gonna
lottery.
You know what? I'm gonna go off on that tangent now.
Yeah, do it.
I allowed myself to go off on that tangent, and I know you're letting me go off on this tangent because you're also looking at the jersey still. But I'm so pissed about last year's Winter Classic jersey. I waited months for this Winter Classic jersey. I was ready to fork over hundreds of dollars to get a Winter Classic jersey. There was a moment where I was seriously considering going to Seattle to watch the Winter Classic at T-Mobile Park. And yet...
Oh, I looked at those tickets. I think I texted you and said, do you want to go?
It was a lot. It was a lot. But there was a moment where I was seriously considering it.
Oh, I was too.
And then the whole fiasco of announcing the Winter Classic jerseys came out. Because you want to know where the Knights jersey got first announced on? So Seattle got their jersey announced on like an NBA on TNT broadcast.
Okay.
You know where the Knights jersey got revealed? All Elite Wrestling. They showed it on All Elite Wrestling. So one, that's a little disrespectful to the reigning Cup champions at the time, showing their soon-to-be Winter Classic threads on All Elite Wrestling, which I'm convinced there's like 4 people in the country that watch. And 2, why did it have to be so bad? Like, it's grown on me a little bit. It's grown on me a little bit in the 8 months since those abominations were worn.
I mean, you do have a sweatshirt with it on it.
I do, but it's because it looks good with the gray on gray. It's the cream color.
It still looks like they're being flipped off, or there's penises or something at the end of
getting
it.
flipped off. That's actually the one thing I actually like about the jersey.
Okay, we'll choose the middle finger instead of the dick.
Yeah, that's
fair.
fine. But like, why did they have to be so mid? Like, there's some of the worst Winter Classic jerseys that have come out in the last 5 years.
It sucks because you guys could have done a lot. Like, you could have gone back to like using the star logo or or like a red jersey or something.
Yeah, like the old first gen reverse retro jersey would have been good. Or they could have taken the opportunity. This is what I said they should have done. And I'm going to really jump in I'm going to jump in my time machine and go back to the design meeting for these 2 Winter Classic jerseys. And I'm going to pull in a weird bit of history here. What they should have done is they should have done a turn forward the clock jersey. They shouldn't have gone for the retro vibe. They should have done something futuristic. And I can see you looking at me sideways, but there's actually a reason for it.
I'm processing, not really calling you out on anything, to be fair.
The reason why I say they should have done like a modern jersey, they should have done something like what the jerseys will look like in 20 years, is because we're going to jump sports again, not to football this time, but we're going to jump to baseball. The Seattle Mariners, who play out of T-Mobile Park, which was at the time called like Safeco Park or something, back when this happened. And actually, maybe they're in the Kingdome still. But, baseball team in Seattle, the Mariners. To be different, this was like in the Ken Griffey Jr. era. They did a thing called Turn Forward the Clock Night, where they partnered up with, I think it was the Diamondbacks at the time, and they made uniforms for what they predicted the MLB would look like in 50 years or 100 years or something. They went like super modern, minimalist logos. They even changed some of the sponsors around the stadium. Instead of like United Airways, it was like United Spaceways or something.
Yeah.
Like they turned forward the clock. They made really cool jerseys. The MLB did it a few times. They ruined it. But the concept of that was created in Seattle by, in either the park where the Winter Classic was played or the park that preceded where the Winter Classic was played. So I think it was a missed opportunity to pay homage to the Mariners and the location of the game. And also would have been a good opportunity to be like, just let's call this out. These 2 teams have a combined 7 years of history. So why are we trying to give them jerseys like they've existed since the 40s? They've got less years of existence they've existed for less years than it's been since the Leafs had won a round if you're sitting in 2021. So, like, I'm mad. I'm mad, especially because the NHL had come out with some good Winter Classic jerseys. Don't you sip water passive-aggressively towards me. I'm on my soapbox and you agree with it because I'm about to give the Wild some credit. Some of the best Winter Classic jerseys to come out in the last 5 or 6 Winter Classics was from the Freezer Bowl, the freezer game at Target Field. I think that was St. Louis and Minnesota. Like, I'm pretty sure the Wild lost that game, but the Minneapolis St. Paul jerseys that they made for the Winter Classic
those were pretty
with
dope.
like the elbow patches, those were awesome. Those were dope, and I would love to buy one sometime. They were awesome. They are so cool. And so I'm like, okay, maybe we could do something like that. Nope. We get the penis jersey. So endeth my rant. I'm just pissed about it.
Yeah, considering that Seattle's jerseys were actually pretty
They
good.
were pretty good too.
And the Blues jerseys haven't been leaked yet, have they?
No, they haven't.
Okay, so it's just the Blackhawks.
Granted, maybe I just have a visceral reaction to the Winter Classic jerseys.
I feel like the Blackhawks could have done better with theirs.
Yeah, but they actually have a history and a heritage. So I think they kind of stuck to their roots a bit.
The thing is that there's this almost, like, if you look at all the Winter Classic jerseys, there's just almost this trend to slap the logo on the front.
Make it tan.
And do the double stripes at the bottom.
Yeah.
Why are we always doing that?
I don't know.
It's almost like it's the default. Like, oh, we can't think of anything. We don't want to be creative, so we're just going to slap two stripes on the bottom.
Also, you got to remember this is Fnatic's first crack at Winter Classic jerseys, which is also why I thought they would have swung a little bigger last year with our Winter Classic, because it was Adidas's last Winter Classic as jersey provider.
I mean, I think they got the Kraken right. I don't think they got they got it half right.
That whole jersey stuff was the equivalent of, hey, let me copy your homework. Okay, but change it a little bit so it doesn't look like you copied off me.
I just think that, and I'm not, who designs the Winter Classic jerseys?
I think it is.
Is it like the team in conjunction with?
I think it's the team in conjunction with the NHL, in conjunction with the provider.
Okay.
I think the NHL has a theme. The team gets a little bit of creative liberty. Like the Knights wanted to go back to like a Wild West theme. If you've seen the reveal video, they do it in like in the Good Springs Saloon. And I'm saying that for all of the Fallout New Vegas fans out there.
I'm pretty sure that, like, if you're going on with that theme, then the jersey definitely follows that theme.
Yeah, but they could have done more. I would have liked to have seen them do more.
Definitely.
I still think the turn forward the clock night would have been the single greatest thing ever, but that's not.
Well, also, why did they choose kind of a Wild West theme?
I don't know.
Considering that you guys are the Knights.
I don't know. Like,
you could have done castles and shit.
I know. I think my biggest problem with the Winter Classic jersey is I watched them do a lot of losing. And they didn't score a single goal in the Winter Classic.
Oh, no. We turned on the TV at one point because we were watching one of the games. And I'm like, oh, they're winning the Winter Classic jerseys. You're going to lose.
I'm pretty sure they lost 3-0 in the Winter Classic.
They did lose 3-0. I was watching that game.
And then the next time they wore them was at home against the...
Was it Seattle?
No, that was the next time they wore it. They wore it 3 times total. First one was the 3-0 loss against the Kraken in the Winter Classic. Second, they lost 5-1 to the Calgary Flames at home a few weeks later. And then the third time, they finally didn't lose when they played the Kraken again in T-Mobile Arena. I was there when they did it.
Didn't they like win?
They won with like a minute and a half to go on a janky fourth line goal. I think
because I remember you were texting me and you're like, oh, I can breathe again.
I think it was like Keegan Colasar or something. Like somebody on the fourth line. It was a weird ass.
You definitely were like, I can breathe again. Thank God that's over.
Yeah. But I still am having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that the 25 Winter Classic is going to still be in calendar year 2024. But
you're reading in 2025 though.
Hey,
so
Wrigley Field's a cool venue. I am conditioned to hate Wrigley Field because I'm a Cardinals fan, and so I'm not allowed to like anything Chicago Cubs. But it's a good venue. It'll make for a good Winter Classic. I still think the Target Field Winter Classic was one of the better ones. The one at the Big House in Michigan though was awesome. The most attended Winter Classic, most attended hockey game in history.
Yeah, I mean, I think doesn't the NHL also, I don't know if they still do it, but they have a stadium series, right?
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't announced next year. I think they've announced next year's stadium series. I think there's only going to be one of them. Unlike last year, there was 2, but it was all the New York, New Jersey teams playing at MetLife. I think the Knights are going to get a stadium series game here in a few years. I think they're going to get one when the Las Vegas Athletics get their stadium. And yes, I just called them the Las Vegas Athletics. That felt awful because they're probably not going to put it in the Raiders Stadium. But
so it looks like the 2025 Stadium Series is the Columbus Blue Jackets hosting Detroit.
Oh, yeah, at the Ohio State University.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's going to be a very well-watched game. Not.
So...
Columbus is a nightmare. They've got the whole Patrick Laine thing to deal with, but we can cover that in the next episode.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that Columbus is Columbus, and it's actually exists.
They have good players. They just can't get it together.
I mean,
they got Johnny Hockey for crying out loud.
They haven't been good, though, for a while.
No, they have not, but they have a cannon.
Let's hope that they can kind of
let's
get
hope.
Things together.
Let's hope.
It would make for an interesting season.
Speaking of getting it together, are the Minnesota Wild going to get Kirill Kaprizov this year?
We will.
So, would you like to explain what's going on with Kirill Kaprizov and why this isn't new?
All right. So, I think it was 3 off seasons ago because I know last year he didn't go home,
which was the right choice. I think it was. Yes. I think it was the 2022 off season.
Yes.
Yeah, summer before the 22-23 season.
So, he for those of you who know or don't know, recap real quick. Kaprizov is from Russia.
Anyway.
Anyways.
Anyway.
So he was trying to get back into the country in end of the summer in 2022, I believe it was.
Yep.
And he kept getting denied entry into the U.S.
Well, it's not his fault that the president or dictator, oligarch, theological leader of Russia decided to say, I want Ukraine, and have his special military operation down there for 3 years.
Yeah, so it was difficult to get back in.
Travel sanctions and all.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure what happened in 2022.
I mean,
there's a lot of stuff.
Something about a falsified military service exemption and trying to buy it off of a black market or something to get his family out.
Who knows if that's actually accurate, though.
It could be, like, we have no idea what. All we know is that he got back to Minnesota in time to start the year. Mm-hmm. But it was a nightmare, and there was a very real possibility that he wouldn't make the start of the season.
So 2022, finally gets back into the country.
Has a good year.
2023 summer, he stays here, which was a good move.
Has a very good season.
And
at times being the only player on the Wild doing anything.
You're baiting, guys. He's baiting me again.
I am, and it's working. But anyway,
Aaron, you can do it. No, Be strong. Anyways,
come to the dark side.
No,
anyway.
No, you've done enough ranting for the both of us this episode.
Okay, that's fair.
So come this year, Kaprizov is supposed to be in Norway because Zuccarello is hosting a charity golf thing?
It's either a charity golf tournament or a charity like hockey camp or something. It's a charity something or other.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact
What matters
specifics.
is it's a charity thing, and Kaprizov promised he'd be there, and he's like been advertised as one of the people who's going to be in attendance.
And he's committed to being there for his teammate and showing up and doing all that stuff.
Teammate, line mate, whatever.
He can't fly from Russia to Norway.
Is this because of the special military operation still?
Probably.
I think it is.
I think I'm pretty sure it's sanction related.
Let's go.
So he got a visa to go to Sweden for the series.
Oh yeah, when they played like the Leafs, the Red Wings, and the Senators.
Yeah, like
the global series.
Beginning of 2024.
Yeah. That was a cool event.
I almost said 2025. I'm like, this is not 2025.
Not yet. No, the global series was cool. That was cool.
Yeah. So he had his visa to get into Sweden because it lasts a year. So he was able to fly to Sweden.
But how?
He had to go from Moscow to Istanbul.
I thought it was Constantinople.
Who knows? And then
that's a question for the Turks.
And then he got into Sweden. Sweden.
Yeah.
And then he flew from there to Norway.
By helicopter.
Really? Was it by helicopter?
Yes, it was by helicopter.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that. This sounds like something out of a Mission Impossible movie or like something out of the Muppets where he has to travel by map. But no, according to the reports, he took a helicopter from, I think it was like Gothenburg, Sweden, to Lillehammer, Norway.
God. So now he is in Norway, and I'm sure he's probably just flying from Norway to the U.S.
I'd hope so.
I'm pretty sure that's his plan.
I hope so.
Or at least I hope so.
I mean, he's got to report to camp in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it'd probably be prudent to, get back into the States and get back onto Central Time Zone.
American ice, get into the country, which is not always easy.
No, especially with the whole Russia sanction stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure what sanctions we have against them right now.
Enough. Our sanction is opening a can of fuck around and find out.
Yeah, probably.
But no. So at least he's getting back. So yeah, maybe he'll take the hint, especially if he has a down year production wise, to just stay in the goddamn US this time around.
I'm sure he has family. He probably has friends in Russia.
He's got enough money. He could get them over here to the States. Actually, it would probably be harder for him to get them to the States than it would be for him to just deal with the travel nightmare every summer.
Correct, because it's one person versus multiple.
I think it would be nicer on the psyche and the hearts and blood pressure of the Minnesota Wild fan community for him to stop going back to Russia and having this, is he going to make it back in time for camp every single summer?
I mean, that's accurate, but also at the same time, if he's leaving early enough,
True.
there should not be an issue.
There's always an issue.
That's fair, especially with like, it's so interesting though, because if you think about how many different people from different countries play in the NHL now,
Yeah.
there's so many.
Speaking of random countries, we had our first bit of Olympic hockey take place last weekend.
Oh, did we?
This is completely off script.
Well,
and
yeah, that's
there
fine.
may be some inaccuracies on this,
May.
but
So don't quote him.
the reason I know that this is happening, I don't know the results, but I know it's happening. 4 countries are playing in an Olympic hockey qualifier.
Oh yeah,
I believe it is Japan, Great Britain, Denmark, and one other country that is escaping me right now. But the whole reason that I know that that's happening is because a Golden Knight is representing Denmark.
I saw that.
Jonas Ronbjerg is playing
it was
in-
reported that he was supposed to be representing Denmark,
along
right?
with a couple of other NHLers. I think it's like Freddie Anderson or something.
Do you think we'll get an NHL break for the Olympics?
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely happening. It's replacing the All-Star game.
Cool.
Just like the Four Nations face-off next year is replacing the All-Star game. So thank God.
That's between U.S., Canada, and who else?
U.S., Canada, Finland, and Sweden.
Okay, I couldn't remember the other two.
And we have a little bit of time to openly speculate about the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy.
Oh boy.
Is Russia going to be there? They haven't competed in an international event in a long time. They haven't competed international hockey since 2022.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, they've got kicked out of the
Wow.
World Juniors. Well, I don't want to say kicked out, but they've been sanctioned out of the World Juniors
Is that because of Ukraine?
because of Ukraine.
Okay.
So, well, let's
Because okay, let's put it this way.
we can be more technical here. They haven't been involved in an official Olympic event since 2018 when
Well, and I know
when their
that's-
doping scandal came out.
That's why I'm like, I don't know if Russia's not participating because of a doping scandal,
So that's why
because
they
of economic sanctions,
So they were
or because of something else.
So this gets really interesting because it splits down the Olympic level. At the reason you didn't see any Russians at the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics was because they were banned from participating. Russian athletes were banned from participating because of the Ukraine war. However,
Wow.
even if they were allowed to, they wouldn't be competing as Russia. They wouldn't be competing under the Russian flag. They'd be competing under the Russian Olympic Committee, and they'd be representing the Olympic athletes from Russia, in air quotes, because the
Which, let's
Russian
be real,
Olympic
it's
Committee,
not that much different.
yeah, the Russian Olympic Federation or Russian Olympic Committee is banned from competing in the Olympics for God knows how much longer because of a doping scandal that resulted in the U.S. getting a bunch more medals over the 2010, 12, 14, and 16 Olympics across summer and winter. And so the Russian hockey team, I think the Olympic athletes from Russia hockey team won the gold medal in 2018 with Ovechkin there, I think. I could be wrong. I think they were in the gold medal game. I think they won. But that wasn't
In
Russia.
2018?
I think in the 2018 Winter Games. I think that sounds right. But I'm gonna continue while you fact check me. So the Russian hockey team, like in the Olympics, hasn't competed since the doping scandal happened and the Russian Olympic Committee was banned from competing in the Olympics.
Yep. So Olympic athletes from Russia, which I don't understand how that's not Russia.
Where
but
it's a semantics thing, but it doesn't matter because they couldn't compete in the Olympics this time around anyway.
yeah. So first title, their runner-up was they were playing Germany,
Oh yeah,
and Canada took third.
yeah. The U.S. had their version of Miracle going on. They tried to win it with a bunch of college kids, and they lost in the quarterfinals to, I believe it was Czechia. It was either Czechia or Slovakia.
I mean,
I think it was Slovakia actually.
we placed seventh.
Yep, out in the quarters.
Looks like we played 5 games.
Yep. The only reason I watched is because Knights prospect Brendan Brisson was on the team, and so I was hoping I would see him. That's also when I learned that you can play. They play 10-minute 3-on-3 overtimes in international hockey.
That's weird.
And yet the game still went to a shootout.
That's.
Tell me about it. That would be awesome to have in the NHL. But
I mean, that reminds me of when the PWHL went into what was it, double overtime?
yeah.
Yeah.
But no. So I have no idea if Russia is going to be allowed to compete in the Olympics in 2026 because they don't get to be in the Four Nations face-off next year. Even though if they, I would hedge my bet to say that if they weren't fighting a war right now, they'd be there. And like Finland would have been left out or something.
Do you think that it's because they're fighting a war, or do you think it's because it's Russia?
It's exactly because they're fighting a war. Like Russia and hockey go hand in hand, especially in the U.S. Like some of the best NHLers are Russian. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov, Nikita Kucherov, Alex Ovechkin. Need I say more? Any Ov or whatever. To steal the line from Miracle. Go up against whatever Ov. Like that's. I don't think it's in the best interest of sports to keep the Russians, especially the Russian hockey team, out of these major tournaments. But they've put themselves in a position where that's the leverage that we have here in the West.
Yeah, but I would also argue that if a team can't win convincingly and cleanly,
well, I mean, history is rife with examples of teams and nations being ostracized or kicked out of events for things outside of their control.
And I'm not saying that they should be kicked out for things outside of their control. But when it seems like, because this is not their first doping scandal either.
No, but I think it's going to be their last one.
We'll see. I don't think so.
That assumes they ever get let back in.
Well, that's my point.
We're still a long way from them being let back in.
Their third doping scandal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's my point, though, is that, like...
this is their version of China and bringing a 12-year-old gymnast.
Like, how many times is this going to happen before you're like, knock it off, you're out, you're done?
I think we've reached that point. Especially on the Olympic side, we've reached that point.
Which is kind of sad because I would say that Russia does deserve to have, as anyone does, any team does, right? Like, if you can field the team, you should send them to the Olympics.
But I do enjoy the fact that it does create simple marketing. The Four Nations face-off is going to be a lot of fun next year in place of the All-Star game. And the 2026 Winter Olympics the year after are going to be...
Where are they holding the Four Nation face-off?
Toronto, Ottawa, Boston, and New York, I think.
I'm going to have to look into that and see if I can get to
I think it's Boston. I think Boston is where the finals are. At the Garden, at TD Gardens, at the Boston Gardens. Kill me.
Why?
Fair enough. But
I mean, I did live in Massachusetts for a little bit.
That is true. That is true. And you parked your car in Harvard Yard.
I actually never did that.
You never parked your car in Harvard Yard?
No, because every person that lives around Boston or visits Boston frequently knows you take the T.
Anyway, I've never been anywhere but the South. So
and it shows.
Hey, tips my 10-gallon cap.
Never wear that hat again.
Yeah, no, that would make my head look stupid. But I
don't think it makes your head look stupid. I think the hat's just stupid.
Good point. You got anything else you want to add, or you want to wrap? Anything else?
I think I'm good. Besides, I'm excited for the year to get started.
Dude, same. I'm ready. If we can get news coming in hard and fast like it was over the weekend for the next 3 weeks, that would be awesome. What?
We forgot to mention this, and I wrote it down even.
What did we forget?
And everything.
Yeah. What'd you forget?
Was it the Penguins that lost their prospect?
Who was it? Who was it? I gotta check my phone. Oh my God, I forgot. You sent me this article.
I sent you this article.
You sent it to me. I said we were going to talk about it, and then we didn't talk about it.
We forgot to talk about it.
Hold on.
I know, I'm scrolling too.
Hold on.
I sent you a lot of articles.
Flyers.
Okay, I had the Flyers written down, and I'm like, I second guessed myself at the last minute.
Yeah, the Flyers officially lost rights to a top NCAA prospect, Bryce Brodzinski, who was a 2019 7th-round pick.
And he's from University of Minnesota, right?
He was a golfer. His rights expired.
Golden Gophers.
His rights expired on August 15th, and that's because they didn't reach an agreement on an extension. So he is now a free agent.
Is he technically a free agent in
Yes.
the NHL then?
Yeah, he's a free agent in any league, so he could
Okay.
sign a 2-way contract in the AHL, a 1-way deal in the AHL because he's a prospect. Wouldn't shock. He could even sign. He'd probably wind up signing in the ECHL.
So the cap for NHL is just for NHL, right? It doesn't,
yes.
It doesn't apply to
Yeah.
the AHL.
I
I could see the Iowa Wild picking him up.
honestly, as a former Gopher, that would make a lot of sense.
Well, especially when Bill Guerin has-
likes his Minnesota
Yeah,
boys.
he does.
What I didn't know is that he has a older brother who plays for the New York Rangers.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Hockey family.
Johnny Brodzinski. So yeah, hockey family. But yeah, thank you for reminding us about that because it's always weird when some of those weird it's been a quirky week in the NHL with
It
offer
really
sheets, with people's rights expiring.
Because I was looking something up, and this is why I love my Google search app so much.
Yeah,
Because I've searched enough hockey stuff and PWHL stuff,
let's
like where
hear
to
it for
watch
the
and
algorithm.
stuff.
The overlords will show us what we want.
And the nice thing is that my homepage was always like, "Oh, here's hockey news," and it was
Right.
the first thing, and I was like, "I went, oh my god!"
Oh my God!
And
prospects.
the people we were walking to somewhere over the wedding weekend, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, what, are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I just have to send this to Ian.
yep.
I have to send this.
Gotta
Hold
send
on."
it. Ah! Yeah. All right. Now that we've gotten that off of our chest, do you have anything else that we have forgotten that we said we were going to talk about
Nope,
like 3 or
we're
4
good.
days ago?
We're good.
I checked my notes. I think I've got everything.
I'm
and if
good.
not, it can keep until Friday or Saturday when we record the next episode.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other news that I wanted to talk about that
Nah.
could not wait.
Yeah. And if something does come up, we're going to sit down and have another
If
conversation.
something big happens, that warrants a special
Yeah.
episode for sure.
We're still figuring out what the threshold for a special episode is, but we're getting there.
I think it's one of those things where
The
I don't know
moment
it.
lends itself to another.
I can't describe it, but when I see it, I know.
It's got a certain je ne sais quoi. Pardon my French. Anyway,
All right.
I
Well,
think-
if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe.
yeah, be sure to like, share it with all your friends. We promise we're going to be less annoying and more consistent, and hopefully our technology works better next time.
And if you enjoyed this episode and haven't, listened to any of our other episodes,
Catch up on all of them. Maybe we'll predict the future like we did last episode.
well, I mean, to be fair, we had some help.
We still made the call before it actually happened. So
That's
I'm gonna put that one in the win column for us. All right. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Bye.